what's up, guys? My name is Zack, and for the last week, I've been driving the 2026 Toyota Tundra TRD Pro. Up front is a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6, as well as a hybrid system, and down below is a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be making this video here today because I've spent the last week driving and honestly loving the TRD Pro. I've reviewed Tundras here on the channel. I believe of this generation, I've done 2 or 3 of them, but never the actual TRD Pro. And although there is literally a capstone, this is kind of the king of the hill when it comes to the performance TRD Tundra until supposedly Toyota's going to drop something even more performance oriented. So for the time being, time of making of this video, this is the king of the hill, and I'm excited to share with you all that it is. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that twin-turbo V6 hybrid under the hood. Well, the good news is that it makes good power. 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. That will allow you to tow over 11,000 pounds, and it is quite the monster. Getting on the highway, driving it at any sort of speed is very fun. It is quick. You do hear a decent amount of turbo noises happening under the hood, which is always my favorite thing, and it is lovely. What is less lovely is the fact that I've been averaging 14 miles to the gallon. Now, I traditionally end up getting a little bit worse MPG than what the EPA estimates. I like using every cubic inch of every engine I'm able to drive, and so, sure, I might be a little bit harder on this vehicle, getting me lower numbers, but I would be truly shocked if anyone who bought this would average anywhere near the 20 mile per gallon mark. That is a very big downside. Like I said, paired to it, 10-speed automatic transmission, drives great, feels great, shifts real quick. You would think it's a dual clutch, and it isn't. That's how quick this thing shifts. Last but not least, of course, the Tundra TRD Pro is 4-wheel drive, and we'll talk about how to select that a little bit later on. How does it feel to drive the Tundra TRD Pro? You feel like a god amongst men. You sit up high, you have that power, you have that presence that is wonderful. However, not great visibility, and the turning radius is atrocious. I have to do a 3-point turn to get into my driveway. I have a pretty standard driveway. I live on a pretty standard street. I have to do a 3-point turn if I don't want to clip my curb or grass. It's that bad. The turning radius is atrocious, and I don't remember it being as bad in other vehicles, in other trim levels of the Tundra, but I might just be misremembering. The ride is also decently harsh, even though you have a bunch of lifted off-road suspension. But again, you feel like the boss, so, that's pretty cool. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a completely digital gauge cluster, and I do think that this functions a lot better than other standard Toyota digital gauge clusters. I think it's cleaned up a little bit better. I like the center-mounted tachometer and all the information that you get. On the steering wheel, on the left, we have our go back and selectors for that gauge cluster screen, as well as our phone options, volume, and voice command. And off to the right, we have our adaptive cruise control, as well as skip track. We also do get a TRD badge down at the bottom. I do like that little touch. And off to the left, we do have a giant climate control vent and then a bunch of buttons for our rear cargo light, automatic high beams, gas cap release, gauge dimmer switch, odometer and trip reset, rear parking sensors on and off, our TRD light bar, heated steering wheel, outlet on and off, our mirror lights on and off, and our tow mirror adjustments in and out. Lots of buttons down there for the control center. Moving on to the door, we have the latch to get in and out, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows, as well as 2 memory seats a little bit further down the door. Up above, we do have the sunshade and power roof options. Love this giant sunroof, but I also want to point out the fact that there is this button off to the left that will actually slide down the entire rear window of the Tundra. Very, very cool to see that. We also do get a built-in dash cam to the upper left, which was very helpful to record this road rage incident I had the other day. This Mercedes, for some reason, did not like that I was trying to pass them. I don't know what beef this Mercedes had with me, but it was very dangerous, and I had that all recorded on the built-in camera. So very, very nice. I would not buy a car without this feature, and I like that a lot. Moving into the center, we do have our infotainment display. This does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it is a very big screen. I like the screen, however, it gets dangerously bright at night, and it does dominate the interior. This is one of the largest screens in an automobile that you can find. The sound system is good, and I do like it quite a bit, but yeah, it's a pretty dominant being within the interior. Down below that, we have physical climate controls. Love that I have physical climate controls, dual zone climate, which is very nice, heated and ventilated seats, as well as a USB-A to the far right. Would have liked to have seen updated to USB-C for 2026, but that's okay. And then we have some more buttons down below for our trailer mode, our camera view button. This does have a 360 camera, as well as a pretty clear backup camera. Our hazard switch, rear locking differential, and our tailgate release, because it does have a power tailgate. Again, we'll talk about that later. Then we do have our auto holding brake and power parking brake. We get a wireless charger in the center with some cubby space, shifter off to the left, and then we have selectors for our 4-wheel drive, so 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low, as well as our drive mode select, tow haul mode, crawl mode, and MTS. Off to the right, we do have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test, and I am happy to report that the Tundra TRD Pro does in fact pass the big friggin' bottle test. Then we do get a center console, a USB-C as well as USB-A in there. And we do get this tiny opening lid, which is very nice. But again, nothing to write home about found in there. The seats are comfortable. They're heated, ventilated, power memory, and they have their own shock absorbers. So one of the other calling cards of the TRD Pro, this is also found in the Tacoma TRD Pro, is the fact that they gave the seats their own suspension. Now the engineers of Tacoma told us this is to cut down on fatigue, and you actually manually pump them up with a hand pump. It's not very useful. I haven't really noticed a huge difference when driving with them inflated or deflated. It's really, really gimmicky, although I will say it's way better here in the Tundra than it is in the Tacoma, and we'll talk about that with the backseat reviews. All right, so let's get into the back of the 2026 Toyota Tundra TRD Pro. Stepping up in here, close the door up. As you can tell right off the bat, knee room is good, headroom is good as well. We have the red camouflage that carries on back here, but we do have the suspension seats. You guys just saw these with the front. Here you can actually unscrew the valve stems and fill it up with air. Takes a little bit. And that's exactly what I didn't want to happen because they roll everywhere. Gosh darn it. But my point being with these seats that I want to make up front, but I want to show you back here, is the fact that I actually fit and can sit behind the driver's seat with these suspension seats. That is not the case for the Tacoma TRD Pro. The Tacoma TRD Pro that gets these suspension seats makes the back seat nearly unusable because it already didn't have a whole lot of space to begin with, but as you could see, it adds a good chunk of space behind the regular seat, and so you lose a lot. But the Tundra has a lot to give, so you don't really notice that lack of space that the seats take up. Down below here, we have 2 cup holders, but we also have storage, USB-A, USB-C, and a wall outlet. Love to see all of that. Overall, the back seat of the Tundra has always been very, very large for this generation, so nothing new there, but I did want to point out the suspension seats don't make nearly as much fuss as they do in the Tacoma here in the Tundra. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the bed and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, coming around the back of the Tundra TRD Pro. I do like this TRD badge. We have the TRD Pro across the back, but we do also have a power tailgate. So it operates like the lift gate of the back of a RAV4 or something like that. Really, really cool to see. Once we are inside, we do have a wall outlet over here as well. Very, very nice, but other than that, pretty standard bed for the back of the TRD Pro. That is not camouflage, that is just a dirty bed liner. So they did not do a camouflage bed liner, although I would not put past Toyota doing it. There is a button down here, you can see, I gotta find it myself, there it is. So that is a power tailgate right back up. Very, very cool. Some people might say that you should be a man and lift your tailgate yourself, but why do it when motors exist? Now we gotta talk about the looks, and it is white, it has camouflage fender flares and tailgate garnishes, it has the light bar up at the front, it has BBS forged wheels, it has TRD suspension, and this does have the TRD Sport exhaust. It is quite the being to look at. I love the way that this looks. It's large and in charge, it is in your face, and it lets you remember that every single time you see that TRD, you say, no, 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 this is not a limited, this isn't a 1794, this is the top dog, and it looks that way, it feels that way, it drives that way. This is the king, and when you drive it, you just feel like the man of the hour, and that's mostly due to its looks. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving this Toyota Tundra TRD Pro for the last week? Well, I equally love this truck as much as I find it ridiculous. This is a ridiculous automobile. The red in here is so loud and in your face. It says Toyota in .1001 font across the front of the truck. The LED light bar is not useful in day-to-day life, but it's freaking cool. It's big, it's bigger than it needs to be. It's just everything the Tundra has ever been at 160%. It's just loud, it's big, and I honestly really like it. But it is ridiculous, and you have to recognize that. This really feels like that really, really shy and introverted friend that decides to let loose in college, and you see them go from this quiet little bookworm reading person to a crazy party animal, and it's almost like the scale tips too much. They go way too into party mode. That's how I feel about Toyota. Toyota's very business suit, very spreadsheet, very calculated. And now it feels like they've been given the opportunity to let their hair down completely, and they've gone overboard. It's like those kids with strict parents when they finally get to college. And you go, whoa, way overcorrecting. I kind of like that about this truck, but I also don't like that, if it makes sense. If you understand that this truck is insane, it's crazy, it's out there, it's bold, and that's kind of cool, I get that. But if you look at this and you're like, that's how all trucks should be, and I hope my neighbors quiver in fear when I pull onto the road, I don't want to associate with you, buddy. I don't want anything to do with you. You seem like you have a lot going on between the ears, and simultaneously nothing going on between the ears, if you catch my drift. So I'm good on that. That's how I feel about this. I feel very similar about this as I did the Hummer EV. Just crazy, crazy wild, but I understand that it's crazy, crazy wild, and I'm accepting that, where someone in denial is a little bit tricky. Anyway, Tundra TRD Pro, thank you Toyota, thank you Drive Shop, thank you Midwest Automotive Media Association. Thank you for watching. Adios!